Good afternoon, everyone. Namaste. Welcome to this FICCI's webinar on trends in future jobs, skill development, and training in travel, tourism, and hospitality. As you are all aware of, that skill development has been called as the backbone of the Atmanirbhar mission, which the Honorable Prime Minister of India has advocated. And with the current pandemic, all of you are aware of the number of jobs which are now getting redundant or needs major upskilling and reshaping in the next few years to come, which makes skill development and upskilling in the entire travel, tourism, and hospitality ecosystem at the center of the debate. And I was in fact reading that Faith, one of the association, has predicted that almost 38 to 50 million jobs are going to be impacted in the entire value chain due to COVID in the coming years. So this requires us to be prepared as leaders for this new world order and also be prepared from a skill perspective that what kind of job roles are going to be required in the future. And this then also trickles down to our educational institutions in tourism who need to make sure that their curriculum and courses are aligned to produce employable workforce in the coming years. And then the third element of this entire ecosystem are also technology providers, because as we are all aware of, things like AI, IoT, AR, VR are severely impacting the current job roles. So it needs to be discussed and deliberated upon that how all these stakeholders are going to come together while we look at the skilling requirements and the job roles in the travel ecosystem for the next decade. And that's the topic of discussion today. Before we get into discussions with our esteemed panelists today, I want to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about what FICCI has been doing in travel and tourism ecosystem in the last few months. You are all aware of the webinars which FICCI has done. Last month, FICCI also released the FICCI Thrillophilia consumer survey on travel, tourism, and hospitality, which covered more than 5,000 sample data points around what would be the travel preferences and demands during the new normal. FICCI also released the FICCI Grant Thornton report on tourism and recommendations for future and organized various e-conclaves. And we're all aware of the Travel Startup Accelerator series, which FICCI started to encourage entrepreneurship and innovation in the space of travel and tourism. So FICCI has been in the center of all the action around promoting innovation and supporting SMEs and startups in the travel and tourism ecosystem, and has been doing a lot of advocacy sessions with governments and various ministries. So to talk a little bit more about the vision of today's webinar and FICCI's role in shaping the perspectives of the policymakers, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Shri Dilip Chinoy ji, who is the Secretary General of FICCI, to come and please give his opening remarks. Dilip ji, please.
Thank you, Karthik. A very good evening to all of you. Srimati Rupendra Brad, Additional Director General, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. Very warm welcome to you to this session on trends in future jobs, skill development and training in travel, tourism and hospitality industry. It is always a pleasure to have you address us because you bring a sense of purpose, optimism, and a sense of advice to all of us. So thank you very much for joining this evening. To Ashish, co-chairman of the FICCI Travel Technology Committee, I think you switch roles with Karthik, but again, you bring tremendous knowledge, and you've been doing this coffee with Ashish, so you have many insights which some of us on this session don't have. A warm welcome to you. A special welcome to Pranab Sarkar, President, Indian Association of Tour Operators and Managing Director, Swagatam Tours. If you see the whole panel, we have different segments of the industry represented here. You actually represent a very interesting segment in the sector. To Mr. Rajan Bahadur, CEO of Tourism and Hospitality Sector Skill Council, he comes with an experience in the hospitality industry. He is a dear friend and a colleague here in this sector. If anybody knows anything about competencies in this sector, it is him. So it's indeed a pleasure to have him with us. So thank you. I know that he already scheduled something to join us. So it's extremely a great pleasure to have you with us. To Mr. Riaz Munshi, Outbound Tour Operators, Pawan Gupta from IITTM here, Chef Kunal Kapoor, Rajiv Goel, founder India Food Tour, and also President India Food Tourism Organization, and Karan Jain, founder Rev, Yuvraj Srivastav, CHRO, Make My Trip, and of course Anirban and Manish Ahuja from FICCI. First of all, good evening once again, and a warm welcome to all of you at this webinar on the trends of future jobs, skill development, and training in the travel and tourism hospitality. Karthik, of course, referred to a FATE, study. FICCI has been also doing studies, and if you see, the Indian travel and tourism industry was expected to witness annual growth before the pandemic of 6% during 19 to 28 to reach $460 billion or 9.9% of India's GDP in 2028. We firmly believe that the long-term vision should not be, should not be altered, because what we are seeing is that it is possible to recover lost ground going forward. The FICCI survey, which we launched actually when Ms. Brar was present, some of them, majority of the respondents, in fact, close to 75% said that they might make up next year by taking 2 trips, right? So, it's very interesting here. While in the short and medium term, the pandemic has impacted businesses and job losses in different segments of the tourism and hospitality sector, it has also created new opportunities. It has also created the need for new skills. If you take a hotel, for example, sanitization was never in a SOP of the hotel, or the restaurant or whatever it is. So you need specialists to sanitize. You need other people to ensure that social distancing is maintained. You require an entire new set of interior design to happen to maximize capacity given the social distancing norms. You need many businesses have pivoted to a digital mode. So you need digital people to come in. You need a delivery specialist to come in. So I think there's a huge opportunity in this facing a global crisis. Just for information, in the annual convention of FICCI, which we're doing on the 11th and 12th, we've decided to support the hospitality industry by actually doing a virtual dinner. So where you'd have a convention and a dinner, there's no hotel, right? There's no physical, so digital, but we are doing the virtual dinner, and many of you on this call might be part of that going forward. We have a strong, very, very diverse set of experts here. All I want to say is that this is an era where it is opening up a new area of cooperation within the industry and training institutions. There are different level of training institutions. We have a specialty institution represented here. But at the same time, individuals are self-learning, and the number of learning opportunities that you have on the web through chefs putting up their own programs on YouTube, individuals, young kids putting up experiences of digital travel, and you see there's a whole gamut of things which never happened. So you suddenly have 1.35 billion 1.35 billion Indians who have become creative going forward. It's a great opportunity. There are many jobs that did not exist which have been created. There's some jobs that existed where the numbers have reduced, but the numbers are going to come back. And we need to actually see what parts of the current we take into the future, and we create a hugely, served from India brand in this whole tourism and hospitality space. So thank you very much, each one of you, for joining. And Karthik, back to you.
Thank you, Dilipji, for your opening remarks. And next, before I invite ma'am, I just want to take this opportunity to share with you that the Ministry of Tourism has been doing a lot of work in the last few months during pandemic through their webinar series, which we all so love and adore, by the name of Dekho Apna Desh. In fact, there was a recent series which was launched, Stories of Chennai, in first week of November, which was focused on Chennai as a city and talking about the entire journey of that city over the years. Recently, the Virtual Tourism Day was also celebrated in complete virtual mode. Sachi app was launched. Even recently, the BRICS meeting happened for the tourism ministers, which was successful virtually. And there was also a tourist facilitation center facility in Kerala under the Prashad scheme, which was set up a few weeks ago. And all of this has been happening under the leadership of the Honorable Minister and Shri Rupinder Bhararji, our guest, who's the Additional Director General, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. And, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to talk about. She has been achiever all through, and she's a 1990 batch of Indian Revenue Services. And before handling the tourism ministry, she was part of international taxation, corporate taxation, tax administration, and citizen services division. And now, under her guidance, a lot of digital initiatives under the tourism ministry have been, it's her brainchild. And we are really honored to have you with us today, ma'am, to understand from you your perspectives in terms of how do you see all the stakeholders present or represented in the panel today. They can understand the government's view of upskilling for the new world order. So a warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Karthik, and a very good evening to everyone who's here. And thank you for so many kind words. One is trying to do one's best in challenging times. And in a sense, I think there's been a great learning in these last few months because if things go normal, then I think we slow our learning. So that's perhaps the silver lining to the pandemic, so to say, is the fact that we are all being pushed to think beyond the regular frontiers. And I must congratulate Fiki of for doing really very innovative subject, sessions. There's been one on use of technologies. You did a customer survey, which threw up some very interesting thoughts, which we didn't even imagine, and they were encouraging trends. And today, talking on trends in skilling development cannot come at a better time because there is a demand and there is a supply. And if you look at just the domestic market, and if you see how the trajectory has been growing, 2,232 million domestic travel visits in India in the last year. And so therefore, when we look at what pandemic has caused in terms of a virtual stop to travel, and it does look like that is the world coming to an end. But if you look at the trajectory of the growth of both the foreign travel visitors that were coming to India before the pandemic, and if we look at the domestic travel, both exhibiting such positive trends that I think we have to keep looking at that and realize that what is happening currently is a blip and it's going to be behind us very soon. And with the trends also now suggesting that vaccine, hopefully at least a reasonably well-performing vaccine should not be too far from all of us. I think it should be a reason to provide some bit of comfort and some bit of succor to an industry that has definitely been suffering pretty badly for the last so many months. Well, so many ideas coming. And before I talk about the skilling, one thing that seemed very interesting when Dilip introduced the concept of a virtual dinner. I think, Dilip, the only benefit of a virtual dinner can be that there are no calories added. So you don't have to run to lose all that. But we hope that that's not going to become the new normal at all, because there's nothing like actually experiencing food. And experiencing food brings me to the whole idea of skilling, that I think if we look at the experience, particularly from a travel and tourism perspective, there is the amount of warmth that flows through and the amount of care that flows through a well-trained personnel. It could be anyone. It could be somebody at the front desk. It could be somebody who's driving you from the airport to the hotel. It could be somebody who's taking care of you in a large event. It could be somebody who ushers you in for a meeting. It could be somebody in any situation. It's actually the human touch and the correct human touch, which is very sensitive to the requirement of a particular segment of a person, which really enhances the whole experience. And therefore, travel and tourism, and while we are doing all our webinars, while we are doing whatever we are doing to generate some content, to keep people interested, to whet their appetites for now, but truly this is a sector which needs very, very upskilled, and the capacity building needs to happen. And I think it is for our industry to come alive to a situation where we as a country have a huge potential in the sector of tourism and hospitality. India has come up from a 65th rank in about 5 or 6 years back to being 34th. Well, the crawl actually starts now because it's going to be getting that much more challenging. And human resource is a crucial part of the growth story for this sector. And therefore, your session that is coming up in highlighting the importance of skilling up cannot be, as I said earlier, more opportune, because you're looking at a country that has the demographic dividend advantage. We have a lot of youthful people. At the same time, we have a lot of people asking for experiences. And I think we really, really need to scale up our capacities to train people and train them in the best practices that are available globally. Because in tourism, we are not just competing with ourselves, we're actually competing with the rest of the world. And therefore, what is good for me as compared to myself yesterday may not be good enough when it comes to global competition. And that doesn't just work for people who have to come in from overseas, but is equally important for the domestic traveler. I think Ito, somebody from Ito is here. I think Pranav Sakarji is here. A couple of years back, I wasn't in the Ministry of Tourism then, but I do believe that a meeting of Ito itself was done in Sri Lanka. So part of it could be about costings, part of it is about experiences, but it also should awaken a little sense of concern in us that if we ourselves are finding it better in terms of an overall takeaway to carry businesses out of India, then we definitely need to introspect and think that if we want to grow as a sector, then the development of the human resource and skilling and capacity building at various levels and the kind of jobs that are associated with your sector are tremendous. And you obviously need a very focused strategy on developing each of them in a highly specialized manner. And just because I can pick a tray at home and serve should not be enough for me to be able to join an industry. And I'm talking of the very elementary job, but then there are so many much more higher skilled jobs that are available in the industry, especially now with digital technologies coming in. We will need to educate our people in handling technologies. We will need to scale them up in understanding so many other global practices. So I think it's up to all of us, the government and the stakeholders, to come up with programs that are in sync with the times. Because what worked in 1980 or what worked in 2000 may not work at all today, because we would then be truly left behind. And I think, therefore, it's a time for some serious introspection, because it should not be that unless I don't go to the most expensive property, that I will not get the best services. Because then we are not looking at expanding the products that are available in the market. Why should I need to be necessarily a quote unquote a 5-star property to get a certain experience? If somebody's done housekeeping, why should it not match the best standards, whether it is done in a small homestay or whether it's done in a 7-star deluxe property? So I think some bit of brainstorming needs to be done amongst all of us in what is training, what is skilling, what is capacity building, identifying the various crucial critical verticals, and only then will we be truly able to leverage what is incredible India. It is incredible, and I've been saying that, and definitely extremely optimistic. However, I do always kind of sort of ring a little bell for everyone. We have a fantastic product. It's an endless product. We all have the passion for putting it forward. There is reasonable amount of infrastructure development happening all across the country, whether it is roads, whether it is civil aviation. We are all growing as a country. Disposable incomes are growing. Everything is going good. But then that should not push us into complacency, into believing that, oh, I have enough domestic market or I have enough people coming in. Clearly, there is far more that we can do. And I think that's where doing a workshop on skill development, and I hope that you shall be doing many more and you shall be working with IITTM. I can see Dr. Pavan Gupta there. And my request to him will be, and we shall, I think, speak separately also, is that the courses will need to be made more contemporary with the times. and the course content in identifying as to what is it that truly will sell as a skill is also very important. Therefore, the interface between the courses and the interface between the industry is something that needs to be done, I think, more aggressively and more rigorously, so that the education that is being provided or skill development that is being provided truly lands up in jobs that pay to these children. And that's how the engine will actually get a lot of energy in it. So those are some of the thoughts, and I do hope that we will be, of use to each other. We are always there with all of you to add value in whatever way that we can. And so, Vicky, thank you very much once again, and I'm happy to see all the co-panelists. I by now, I think, know most of you. So thanks for listening, and we hope that we can revive and restore the numbers, and not just revive and restore, but actually take them many folds forward as times go by. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your sharing your perspectives and how the government is thinking on the entire upskilling ecosystem in India. And thank you again for your thoughts. And before I invite our panelists, I just want to build on to what ma'am and Shri Chinoy was saying, that the entire we've seen the numbers, right? In India, we're talking about 38 to 50 million jobs which are going to be made redundant. In other countries, I was reading in UK, almost 20% of entire 3.2 million jobs in the tourism sector have been already forecasted to be redundant in the next few years. While all of this is happening, one almost starts to wonder that what kind of new job opportunities would emerge, which could be an opportunity area for us to look at. So some of the areas which have already been covered by ma'am and Dilip Shenoy as well is, one is the digital skills, right? So we're talking about artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, augmented and virtual reality. These kind of new age technologies are now being used, and we need people who are trained in them. So that also goes back to the changes in the curriculum, as ma'am was saying, to be able to train. For example, in hospitality now, chatbots are used, right? So you need a workforce in front office who understand what a chatbot is and how their role now changes with the use of a interface like chatbot for handling support and grievances and even concierge desk. So that's one part. The other is even the leaders. So as leaders, some of you here run large organizations. We need now playing captains, right? People who can actually get hands-on and manage these new processes and technologies and lead from the front. Then the third aspect is the entire structure of work is now moving towards gig economy and people working from home, working on specific projects in freelancer mode. How do we manage that sort of a workforce? Because it's very uncomfortable, I have seen for many leaders, to manage such a distributed workforce. They are used to managing a team in office who works on a specific job role, but that's no longer the case. So how do we adapt to this sort of a gig economy format? Then some of the new roles, as Mr. Chinoy was saying, that hygiene sanitation was never a role. Now that's a specific role. Health and wellness is a new role which is identified. We need people who are good curators or digital marketeers or storytellers. So that's a new job role which has emerged. Now people are also talking about guest experience designers. So end-to-end workflow for the guest, right from booking to being welcomed into a property to their entire support, ongoing in-trip and feedback process, how that gets automated. Then we need then sustainability, and green tech and clean tech is a big focus area for a lot of people in the travel ecosystem. People are concerned about this carbon footprint. So how do we get people who are experts in corporate social responsibility and the larger sustainability debate? So these are some of the areas which present a huge opportunity for upskilling the resources in the future in the travel, tourism, and hospitality ecosystem. So talk about this, we have an esteemed guest, panelist of from different areas. So we've got 10 panelists today. So the format is going to be that each panelist would focus on 2 to 3 minutes on their opening remarks around how do they see in their field of work the entire debate of upskilling and new roles and new job structures for the travel fraternity. And then we'll take question and answers from the audience towards the end. So I'm going to start with Mr. Ashish Kumar, who's the co-chairman of FICCI Travel Technology Committee, and all of us are aware of the amazing work he's doing through Startup Mentor Board, through Coffee with Ashish series, which he has started. So he's been a strong advocate of startups, especially. So I think, Ashish, it would be interesting to hear from you, as somebody who has seen the entire industry evolved and job roles and skills also getting evolved over last 4 decades in which we have been active. So it will be interesting to hear from you some of those perspectives. And also now you are at the other end of the spectrum, working with a lot of startups. I think you personally mentor more than 30 odd startups, which is a huge achievement in itself. So also help us understand that how these startups are thinking about the upskilling requirements. So a warm welcome to you, Ashish ji, and we would like to welcome you for your remarks. I think you're on mute, Ashish.
Yeah. So thank you, Karthik. I have a disclaimer and I have a caveat. And the disclaimer is that most of what I'm going to say will resonate with the travel and tour operating perspective. And if it fits into hospitality, if it fits into any other aspect, it purely coincidental. The caveat being that one shoe does not fit all sizes. Right. So I start with that. And if you look at the topic, I'm going to focus on trends, the word trend, because trends is the one which defines our strategy. Trends is what decides for us what the skilling is required, what the nature of jobs will look like, and what should the industry do in the future. But coming back to the current state of affairs, as somebody said, that the COVID has been the best chief transformation officer. And for those of us who have been practitioner of business transformation will realize what I'm saying. Because to me, when we talk about impact of COVID, etc., it's a 80-20. 20 may be directly related to COVID having hit us. And 80 was waiting to happen, but we were very either lethargic, or we didn't put our investment, or we didn't put our resources, or we didn't channelize the energy in that direction to transform ourselves. So therefore, I strongly believe that COVID is doing nothing beyond kicking us to move on faster. And let me tell you, it is making us move very, very fast. So therefore, and like I said, the 20% of course may be directly related in terms of safety, hygiene, nature of travelers. I leave that part out. I stay with the 80. So if you look at trends, number one, we are all familiar with the term known as hire and fire. And I want to introduce today a term known as fire and hire. We fire people first because obviously we've been hit by the pandemic. And then when business starts growing up, we need to hire them back. So what are we doing? I have personally been involved in building very, very large team for at least 4 organizations from scratch. And again, I stay with my disclaimer of staying with travel and tour operating perspective, that each of the people you hire, when you hire a team of 100, 200, 300 people, they bring their own DNA, they bring their own culture, they bring their own processes, they bring their own values, and it fits into what you call an MOBA of organization. Now you imagine the situation that you had an organization, big, medium, large, you had to get rid of certain people, and now you have to either first step would be you'll try and get those same ones back. Because why you will try to do that? Because there is a familiarity with your customer, there's a familiarity, they know your processes well, they know your DNA, but they might have moved on. They might have moved on to other organizations, they might have moved on outside the travel industry, or they may have moved on to their own hometown. So getting them back. So for you to manage the fire and hire syndrome will require a different skill, different strategy, and a different perspective. And it's a huge challenge for HR managers and the CEOs of the industry in the first place. The second aspect is what we are very familiar about: work from home, work from anywhere. It is my own estimate, and of course confirmed in my last discussion with Yuvraj in Make My Trip, that perhaps 30% of the workforce for medium and small, maybe not so much for small, but medium and large companies in the travel and tour operator will ultimately, technology driven or not technology driven, may be moving away from where they sit at one centralized location. We in the industry have become so used to having people sitting in front of ourselves when we work, we'll have to get used to, as Karthik mentioned, of having people who are working from Bhubaneswar, and I have my office in Gurgaon. And more importantly, this employee who's working out of Bhubaneswar, either from his home or a co-working space. Last I read somewhere that the cost of rentals of co-working space in smaller tier 3, 4 is going up by 15-20%. That purely to me indicates that these co-working space is being hired by people who are collectively by organizations working out of smaller towns. If that be so, supervision and the processes and skills of governance you put in place is going to be a tremendous challenge, which any practitioner of skill development and HR would have to look at, is how do you manage your workshop place which is sitting from a remote location and vice versa. The third is the leadership. We keep saying our employees. To me, training the leader is more important at this stage than training the employees. Because as again, Karthik stole my thunder, that you need playing captains, right? You don't need managers anymore. You need CEOs who are playing captains. And I will also quote in passing Dilip Shenoy, who in a coffee with me told me very validly so, that technology is not a department anymore in an organization. It's a driver of business. So therefore, you need playing captain. The fourth element is managing temporaries, gig workers. You could have perfect vice presidents in the company who could be actually vice presidents in 3 companies non-conflicting, right? You are not used to, leadership is not used to dealing with their vice presidents or general managers and managers who are actually wearing 3 hats, right? You expect them to be available to you at all times, and they may not be available to you all the time. So what does it say? It says that you have to put again your processes, again your DNA in a manner you have to hire gig workers and people who would be working. The element I throw with the gig workers is also women folks, because when this work from home is coming in, we've seen in the travel and tourism industry that beyond a point, women folk leave the travel industry. And they leave it because they get into the family way, they leave obviously because with their spouse, they move to another location. So I see over a period of time, these same women folks who might have left 10 years ago, the travel industry may want to come back because they have an opportunity to be able to work out of Bhubaneswar or Shillong or wherever else they have now moved in. So reskilling them back to bring them back into a contemporary, and it's going to throw up an enormous opportunity, both in terms of cost and in terms of process, to be able to hire these women folks and provide employments in Shillongs and Bhubaneswar, wherever their spouses may be posted or they moved on, to welcome them back into the industry. The fifth element I want to address here as a strategy is verticalization. We know with the penetration of internet, how it's moved into tier 3, 4, 5 cities. Let's not talk about it. It's going to be hitting the travel industry in the same manner it's hitting. Travel industry is no more the Bombay, Delhi, Gurgaon, Chennai syndrome. It's a syndrome which comes from Balaso. It's a syndrome which comes from Panipat. So if that be so, verticalization is going to be a very important element, and you're going to be hiring people who are going to be multitasked into verticalization. The contents are going to be vernacular. So sitting as a CEO, I would, or sitting as a project manager, I would have to take into account that I actually be able to deal with multilingual folks across the whole spectrum. Much has been said about technology and digital. I would say even prior to COVID, it has been my experience, and I've been in the consulting space for the 10 years, having worked with very large big 4 companies, consulting firms as well, that 70% of technology projects fail because they are not implemented down to the grassroots level by the users. They are either pushed down by the CEOs or they're pushed down by some technology company, and people have little understanding of how to get the return on investment out of that technology project. 70% actually fail. So now with technology being such an important aspect, again, it throws up enormous challenges that, and I call it demystifying technology, that even the smallest feet on the ground would have to understand what you're hoping to achieve by that technology process. And let me here again add, for travel and tour operation, we use the word technology. It's a 9-letter word, but it's used very, very loosely, because we normally refer to technology, which again I call an 80-20 syndrome, that 20% is a user interface, what you see, right? Nice looking website, nice looking application, nice looking that. That's a 20%. 80% is what you don't see, like an iceberg. It's your middleware, it's your backend, it's your processes which bring the efficiencies into the game. It's your hosting. And of course, I'll come back to the artificial intelligence and the data management part separately and the impact it will have on jobs. But do remember this, when you look at technology in terms of skilling, do not concentrate only on the 20% element, but see that the lowest denomination is able to handle even the balance 80%. Otherwise, if 70% of your projects have failed in the industry prior to COVID, let me tell you, maybe 90% will fail because you'll be in a tearing hurry to implement them. Because if you're not in a tearing hurry to implement them, you would have anyway fallen down the roadside. The seventh element, I'd say, it's a very hard question all of you need to ask yourself in your organization. Will this job, and I'm not talking about your job, I'm talking about any job you throw open in your organization, will this job exist 2 years from now? Ask yourself this question. And if you look back, and I've been in the industry 41 years now, and I have seen many jobs have fallen down the wayside because processes have changed, dynamics have changed. For example, the GDS in 1993, when you came to air ticket, there was a skilled job as to hiring people who knew how to calculate the cheapest tariff to travel onto multi-sector routes overseas. Those jobs are not required. The GDS does the calculations for you. Then there was a job which, if you were an implant in a corporate, you were searching the three lowest fare and giving it to the corporate as part of governance. Those jobs don't exist because the meta search has taken over those jobs. So look ahead and ask yourself this question, will this job exist? And to my mind, I will address directly into two tour operators sitting here, which is Riaz Munshi and Pranav Sarkar here. I feel that the packaging business, the tour operating business, is going to be at the worst end of receiving end into changing dynamics, be it inbound, be it outbound, be it domestic, because you will see, as far as the corporate travel is concerned, the corporate travel has kept pace. I'm still not satisfied with the way the service providers have moved, fulfilling the customers' requirements, but they still move fast because the corporates have been smart enough to be able to demand and put pressure on the vendors to be able to meet up to the challenges. But on a holiday maker, I think you're yet to see the demands on yourself, because in the packaging business, when you have do it yourself, intelligence, AI, ML, Internet of Things, dynamic packaging, and the multi-layering which we have ourselves created in the packaging business being destroyed, you will realize that jobs will require different skilling, your own attitudes to handling inbound, outbound, domestic, call it whatever. We have made ourselves, we have given ourselves, I must say, self-importance to say, oh, we are needed. I am not certainly here advocated that tour operators are not needed. I'm only advocating that the roles will change, just as the roles of the ticketing agent change when 0% commission came in the ticketing business, and from commission agents they became more management fee agents, where they were delivering value to the corporate customer. Similarly, I see the roles of the packaging industry changing totally. So ask yourself in the seventh manner, will this job exist or not?
I think Ashishji will also come back to two questions because many of these
right. So I will just finish this. So therefore, the last but not the least is the Kodak moment. We all know what happened to an organization like Kodak, which could not keep it pace with changing times. So today, the customer is your Kodak. You have to look at ways of looking one step ahead of the customer. If you can't be 2 steps ahead of the customers, you will fall down the list. So whether it's your job, whether it's your skilling, whether it's your training, has to be keeping ahead with the customer, because we've always said the customer sab janta hai. And let me tell you, he'll probably know more than he ever knew before. So on that, I just say that look at the trends, look at the strategy, and then decide what your program for skilling across the verticals would have. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Ashishji. And of course, I mean, you are a wealth of knowledge. We'll come back to you for more information. But I think the key takeaway is that all of us need to ask that question as leaders, as well as for all the job roles we have, that will this job exist in the same format in the next 2 years or not? I think that's a very powerful statement coming from Ashishji. Next, we have Mr. Rajan Bahadur, who is the CEO of Tourism and Hospitality Skill Council. Rajanji is a seasoned professional in this ecosystem with more than 33 years of experience in various board and senior management roles. And even in his individual capacity, he has handled senior leadership positions and set up large greenfield projects with companies like Care India, Unison Hotels, Lebua Hotels, Starwood Hotels, Oberoi, ITC, and the list goes on and on. And now I think he's really at the helm of affairs as the CEO of Tourism and Hospitality Skill Council. The Skill Council for TNH, as many of you are aware of, was created with the agenda of tackling the skill requirement for the entire sector as a whole, and the entire strategy he's building under his guidance and leadership is aimed at creating a healthy ecosystem. So that includes partnerships with the academia, with the industry interface, and making sure that all these subsectors of the industry, like hotels, tour operators, food service restaurants, facilities management, cruise liners, and all these subcomponents of and the travel intermediaries, are all of them are covered under one umbrella under his guidance. So I would like to request you, Rajanji, to talk about that from where you sit at the helm of affairs of the overall skilling of the industry as a whole. What kind of when you sort of crystal gaze, what kind of opportunities do you feel, do you align with some of the uh, you know uh, future trends which Ashish talked about, getting more women into the workforce, managing gig workers, managing people who know technology, grooming leaders, and then of course aligning the course curriculum of academic institutions in the tourism space. And we'll have Dr. Pawan talk about it in a bit. How do you see the interplay of all of these on the overall THC helm of affairs where you sit at?
Thank you very much, Karthik, and really delighted to be on this platform. For the benefit of all, while Karthik has given a brief introduction, THSC is a not-for-profit organization, and we fall under the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. We are actually formed by the industry and for the industry, and we have a separate independent governing body, which is representative of senior stalwarts from the industry. And basically, the idea is to bridge the gap between demand and supply of skilling people. Just as a rewind to what I'm going to say is that I want to also just make a few points here, that the travel and tourism sector hold a strategic importance in the Indian economy. We all know that. We all talk about that. Providing several socioeconomic benefits, not providing employment, income, and foreign exchange, not just directly, but also indirectly through other industry like agriculture, construction, and so on and so forth. I think I want to divide this talk into two parts, the pre-COVID and the post-COVID. Now, from the tourism and hospitality industry point of view, we know in the pre-COVID basket, the tourism and hospitality industry has been the single largest employer. Globally, 1 out of 11 jobs, most of us know, are provided by this sector. In India also, tourism contributes to 10% of the GDP and nearly 12% of the workforce, and is often seen as a catalyst for economic development. The reason I'm going into this is because, pre-COVID, we were on a high. What happened post-COVID? Tourism and hospitality is one of the worst hit, perhaps the earlier one to get hit and perhaps the last one to recover. And when I say recovery, I'm talking about survival at this point of time, not revival, first survival at this point of time. We have had several countries globally who have got restriction, and so travel and all has come to a restriction. This is not the first time that the industry is going through this. We talk about 9/11, we talk about all these. The industry has gone through such things, and we have learned to deal with failures. And every time we have had a fallback, we have come back much more stronger. So the point I'm making is there is a opportunity which we are looking at. The demand is less at this point of time, but the optimist that I am, I do believe that this demand is going to increase and come back soon. Ms. Bra spoke about the fact of domestic tourism is going to lead, and I do believe it's going to lead in the recovery. A drivable distance, I'm sitting in Delhi. I've done 2 or 3 trips into Uttarakhand and Himachal just to make sure that, get out into that. The fat Indian wedding has gone out of on a diet actually. But the point is that there will be, I believe, many smaller occasions where family get together. So there'll be new opportunities. I mean, can you imagine the chef catering to similar customers, because 80% of the customers will be repeat customers for those events, has to prepare a Mona Lisa every time they create that food. So challenges, yet whole lot of opportunities. The new normal, we have been talking about a whole lot of new normal. What is the new normal? I mean, did any one of us imagine what we are going to go through pre-March? But given today's scenario, I think the goalpost has been changing constantly. So it's been continuously changing, and it is up to us to continue to align with the new goalpost. There are situations, what are we landing up doing? What are some of the new skills? I mean, before I get into opportunities, we're talking about training, and we're talking both about training of students as well as the faculty. You know, very often we forget the faculty. The faculty is themselves going through huge changes to be able to teach the students and train the students under the new norm. We're talking about soft skills. We're talking about blended models. In the food industry, could you ever imagine online blended course where you can't touch the food, where you can't fool the food, where you can't smell the food? But all of that is beginning to happen. I think in terms of our own, the old, you know, Ms. Bra spoke about the fact that changing environment. We are talking about the fact that the old qualification packs, as we call, what was good yesterday, are changing today. So constantly there is a change. I think Dilip spoke about the fact that focus on hygiene and sanitation. These are opportunities. Whenever there is a disruption in the market, there's a huge opportunity. But there is nobody from outside who's going to come and hold our hands. We got to grab that opportunity. We're speaking about focus on hygiene and sanitation. Entire hospitality industry is now focusing on not just creating a safe hygiene environment, but also showcase it to guests. So guess what is going to happen? The need for hygiene managers, need for auditors. There is focus on health and wellness. Guests in hotels are creating food and beverages experience centered around improving health and immunity. You need nutrologists, you need well-being and personal well-being experts. These are suddenly new stuff coming up. Content makers, storytellers. I mean, Dilip did allude to the fact that, and I'm going to just emphasize on that, that online presence will be even more important day to day. The only way hotels can stand out is in the digital world is by storytelling. Effectively, content marketing. Each hotel, its employee has some story to sell. They've got to change the experience which is going about. Spoke about guest experience, designers, creators, multitasking. I mean, another big thing. I mean, with occupancies at a low level, there has to be multitasking. Tomorrow, it's not going to, the new normal will probably be that the guest relation manager, the front office, and the duty manager are all roamed into one, are zeroed into one. Technology, again, is going to bring a huge impact. Contactless service, check-in, check-outs, menus on your phones. The reason I'm saying all of this, and I've been often asked, is that what is your advice to, especially to people who are in the industry, who are actually undergoing skilling? What is the future? And my thought process is very simple. They couldn't be in a better position because they're riding this wave of opportunity. Today's generation already is a step ahead of all of us who are tech savvy. It's their DNA. So as they come out after the skilling, they're already ready to take the world on and the new norms on. Similarly, people who are just finishing the skilling and the jobs may not be there at this point of time, which will happen 6 months, 8 months, 10 months later. It's a great opportunity to upskill and learn other things. A non-finance guy can be doing some bit of auditing and financing. It's up to you to see. But I think the opportunities are huge. We are doing a lot of online courses where we are doing mobile apps from THSC, which are rolling out, which are things like basically on food and service, on hygiene, and so on, so that by the time these people come, the opportunities are there. To one of my fellow panelists who had also mentioned, the fact of the matter is work from home is actually an advantage today. You have a lot of people who may lack mobility today, but a lot of stuff can be done from home. So net, and I'm not going to take too much of time at this point of time, but
Yeah,
net,
we'll come back again because Rajanji,
yes.
people are also pouring in questions. So we want to keep
So
this opening one just.
absolutely. So I'll just stop here by saying huge opportunities. There's not everything is lost. In fact, this disruption is bringing in a lot of opportunities, and we should grab that. Thank you.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much, Rajanji. And next, we have Shri Pranab Sarkar, who is actually going to play two roles. He's the president of the Indian Association of Tour Operators, AATO, and he's also the managing director of Swagatam Tours. And AATO, as we know, is one of the apex body in the tourism fraternity in India with over 1,600 members. And Swagatam Tours, which is the brainchild of Shri Pranab Sarkar, has got multiple divisions in as a destination management company, as a ticketing company, tourism, and sort of global healthcare companies also there. So it's got a host of companies under the umbrella of Swagatam Tours. So I think, Pranavda, what we would really love to hear from you is specifically that as a tour operator, as a direct business entity in this ecosystem, where do you see the gaps in the skill supply in the industry, and how do you see that changing for your businesses? And also from AATO's perspective, how do you see associations playing a role? Because many times, if I'm a small time travel operator, I may not have the resources to get the best talent or to upskill people or to enroll them into training and skilling programs. Nor can I associate with large academic institutions to support me. So, can associations play a role in amalgamating a lot of these SMEs together and then do a knowledge series for them or educate them on some of the future skill roles and requirements? So, very warm welcome to you, Pranavda.
Thank you, Karthik, and thank you, Vicky, and Manish, and Dilipji, Ashish, everyone on the panel. And it is nice to join all together, and we are doing some exercise on the skilling activity, which is very important. I think in any industry, without skill, the delivery is not possible of your satisfaction, which is the requirement of the each and every customer. They pay for it. Whether it is a hotel, there is a transport, whether it is an airline, whether it is a tour operator services. So anything you look at has to be professionally designed and uh, properly plated in front of the client. So that is very, very important. Unless you have professional people with you, it is very difficult. Just to give you some background, when I passed out from my school, so I was looking at that what I can do that in very fast mode I can get a job. So there the started a college called Vocational Studies, and they offered various vocational subject, and one of them was tourism. And that time it was 1975, and no one was heard of this word. What is tourism? People used to learn languages to handle tourists. People never had this kind of thinking, but one good person in the Delhi University, he thought of doing this, and uh, my liking was traveling, so I opted for this subject. And later on I realized that because of my good training while doing my graduation in tourism, which also provided me some practical training, which was attached with some travel agencies and tour operators. So that made me a complete man. And when I opted to look for a job, that was given a preference that it was never heard of. And I got an opportunity to a big company. And from there, on job, I learned the maximum on job. Nowadays, it is taught. Dr. Pawan Gupta is there with a full syllabus in front of him that what to be taught and what need to be taught, trained. What are the expert he should bring in to give the lecture to the student that they learn shortest span of time and they come out for the industry, for the professional jobs, and give uh, perfect service, and they rise in their life. So today, if we look at many people, they talk the this technology is taking over, but I tell you, the experience shall remain the best bet in your success, which is very, very important. We never learned what is the technology. Technology came in front of us, and gradually we learned ourselves implementing and introducing those technologies with us. If we don't learn, we will be left behind. We will be passed by and finish, but not. I have never had this feeling that I need not to learn. I practiced one thing that I need to learn every day. If I say I know everything, means that is the last day of my a day that I say know everything. But every day I learn, because it is not necessary that I have to learn from my seniors. I can learn from my juniors also. I can learn from the youngster also. They are coming in. Keeping in mind, my endeavor was that to assist the people who really require this kind of help. I realized surrounding that getting an admission to a college is very difficult in our country. If you look at, not even 10% students they get admission in the colleges. Where they go, their parents are not able to support them. There may be no options. They don't have money for the college. They don't have money to go abroad to study. So where this, people, the youngster, where they will go. So the first thing I had in my mind that why not tourism should be taught in the school level. After the middle education, if the tourism can be taught in the syllabus, in the curriculum, I think that is the where it is needed. And immediately after passing school, there are plenty of jobs in hospitality sector where you don't need big degrees but can be of assistance, and that is clearly visible that if you go in a hospitality industry, you need not to have a big degree, but eagerness to learn and provide service. So that is where it came close with the government and Ministry of Tourism. We put forward from our association this venture that it should be given. And that time, uh, tourism minister was Renuka Chaudhary, Srimati Renuka Chaudhary, and she took it forward. And it took 2 years to implement. And after departure, I was very happy that one of the functions at Ashoka Hotel, that time Shelja Kumari was the Minister of Tourism, and education was Mr. Kapil Sibbal. And he who introduced this 10th class and 12th, 10, 11th and 12th class hospitality course for the students. And thereafter, PUSA Institute started, you learned while you earned. So that is the curriculum started for the low level people. And from there, it is a big success that all the students, whosoever is being absorbed, it is a compulsory for the hospitality sector that you have to absorb the trained people, trained staff. In tourism also, in all travel agencies and tour operators, for recognition for the government of India, you need to have trained staff. So the qualified staff. So there it is a plus point when education is substituted with some job and attached, you are having a placement service in hand. Therefore, whosoever is doing this course are benefited. Thereafter, many things have started. There is a fast certification courses started, not only for housekeeping but also cooking in the hospitality sector. If you look at, so there the skill development has come, and it is giving assistance to various institutions that they will do that. Similarly, in IATO also, we know that many of the tour operator, they cannot afford to have so many trained staff because of the scarcity we have at the moment. So they do have normal educated staff also. But in IATO, what we have done, we have a skill development course we undertake on the job. So on job, we have various training program. So on these training programs, we have experts who are coming and giving training, and the latest technology, everything is being taught. Not only the applications of technology in the tourism sector, but also how to do the production, marketing, operations. All these things are being taught in our skill development program.
Right.
That is how IATO is also involved in
Right.
coming in.
Pranavji,
So
come
there
back
are,
again because a lot of people are sending me
yeah, please.
questions, and I want to focus more on audience questions because that's going to be, that interaction is going to be really interesting. But I'm
Correct.
really taking that key takeaway from your speech, Pranavji, that on the job still rules, right? You can teach
Correct.
whatever you want to teach in the university and tourism, schools, but ultimately on the job, the game is different, and that's when you're on the pitch, that's when you know which way the ball is going to swing. So that's a great insight, Pranavta.
Thank
And
you.
then next, I'm going to invite Mr. Riaz Munshi, who is the managing director of Ncra Travels, and he's also the president of Outbound Tour Operators Association of India, OTOI. Riaz is a well-known figure in the travel ecosystem in India. He has been leading the helm of affairs at Ncra for so many years. He's got more than 3 decades of experience in the industry, and I think it will be very interesting from you, to understand, Riaz, that how this, from an O2I perspective, how do you see the outbound market evolving? We all know that in next few quarters it's going to be really dicey. And how do you see the people from tier two and tier three are now traveling abroad, and new sort of technologies and experiences, be it VR, is coming in for destination experience. In light of all of these, how do you see skills and job requirements getting changed for professionals working in the outbound market? So we would love to have your thoughts, but humble request, let's keep this initial discussion for 3 to 4 minutes because we've got loads of questions coming in, and I really want to focus on that questions from the audience.
Sure.
So warm welcome to you, Riaz. Over to you.
So, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on this platform. Bounce back is going to be stronger than setback. That's what I believe, and that is going to happen. If I look at India tourism story, it's going to, India is going to be booming. The people are looking at India, the all kind of a segment, be it say inbound, domestic is already doing well than before. And outbound, we are looking at 100 million travelers in years to come from 30 million pre-COVID in 2019. But as you know, Ashish also mentioned, there are going to be a lot of changes around. So dynamics are going to be changed. The people have to create a product. They have to be innovative. They have to go that what, the market you are serving, you have to create a product according to that. So as far as outbound is concerned, we are quite, we are quite optimistic that market is going to, see the robust growth in time to come. You see the time just flies. It's going to be a year in pandemic. So we have to wait for, it's not going to happen all of a sudden. But as soon as we start like post COVID, and you will see a lot of changes. As we all know, we Indians are reactive. We react. So it's all based on a sentiment. Right now, the sentiments are low. So people are saying that travel is going to be affected and stuff. But what I see, there's going to be a robust growth in inbound and outbound both. Maybe inbound is going to take time because inbound season is now and it's the next season is going to be next year. But you will see a robust growth in outbound and domestic tourism. And when you see the growth overall, naturally you need more human worker, you need more people. But basically our industry is so large and there are so many vertical within that. We need to, the people have to identify and we have to educate our youth accordingly. We need to have a training system in place in our organization. We have to train our people as per our requirement. It's not possible that, I'm selling somebody else's product because it's not going to match. And that's why what Ashish said, that is going to be what is the role of tour operator now. It's not going to, because the clients are more smart. They have a information, they have a time. If I'm planning a trip to London, I have nothing to do, I'll keep on checking on London. So we have to differentiate ourselves. We have to have a better knowledge about our product, what we are selling. And there is a segment which is coming up on a luxury segment. The market is going towards a luxury segment, and luxury means you need to have a knowledge. You have to create an experience, and all that thing need to be changed. People have to adapt that. And in case for that, we need more new people to work. So if overall you can see in a mid-term, the India growth story is quite intact, not in a tourism for overall. All tourism board, if you look at, they're looking at India. Some of them are, focusing on India as the top source market. And all this thing is going to generate employment. So right now we are at, we are thinking that it's going to be a problem. For the time being, yes, there is a problem. And it's a challenge for everyone in the world. Not only we are suffering, we are the worst affected. But then we have to be optimistic. And I'm sure soon, I think we have the, vaccination, we see the vaccination coming in and stuff. So we will see some demand of travelers. Destinations are opening up. I am in fact in an opinion that world should open up for tourism. All touch point have been taken care of. You be it's an airport, it's a hotels, they are saying that we are, taking a precautions. The flights, they are saying the least risk you have when you are flying. So the people should open up now. The world should open up for tourism. Tourism is a, the world backbone of economy, and that will have generate economy and in entire world. So we should open up. We all know it's not going to start immediately. It is going to be in phase manner. It's going to take time. And as if we start now, maybe as soon as vaccination comes, we see the urge of more travel demand. As travel demand is going to start, people have to get ready. They cannot wait when the travel demand is going to start. What Ashish rightly mentioned, you need to have team in place. You have to have your resources in place. You cannot wait for a time to come. You cannot find a water when there is a fire. You need to be ready with the water.
Absolutely.
So people have to be ready. The people who are saying that, we have now no team, and you have to ready with your stuff. The race is going to begin. You all have to ready. As far as youth is concerned, we have so much of them to offer. Our industry is starting from, we have so many verticals in that. We have aviation, hospitality, be it even outbound, domestic, wedding, MICE. But we have to see their interests. Even we can, with in a collaboration with FICCI, with the association, we can create something which interests to the youngsters. We can tell them what they wanted to be then. See, they have to have a fire. They have to have a passion to work in tourism industries, because we are selling, in particular outbound and inbound, we are selling happiness. You need to be happy. You have to create an experience, and all that things, will create more jobs, I'm sure. So there is a huge opportunity for young people, and I think maybe Dr. Pawan Gupta they are already in educational stream. They can design something, if anything help is required, we can design something where the youth know what is their interest and what they want it to be. It's just like blindly they say we want to get into the travel, and they have to identify their interest, then they have to work on that, and then there is no look back. There is ample opportunity to grow. Now, as far as I'm little bit differ to the work from home concept. In India, people wanted to go, they want to mingle with other people. So maybe to start with, it will be done. For a segment of people who cannot go to the office, for them, maybe the work from home is a better option. But the people who wanted to venture out, how you are going to grow? You need to meet people, you have to interact, you have to understand. Sitting at home, you are not going to interact with people that much.
Right. Riyazji, I think we're going to come back again, because there are a lot of people who have specific questions around it. But I think the key takeaway from this is that we have to really preempt and be ready, and not, wait for the doomsday to come when the job has been, I mean, that Kodak moment where Ashish was saying, we should not just wait and prolong saying that it's fine, we still have time, but let's take some action right now. And I think it will be interesting to see how Dr. Pawan is also going to advise in terms of how we will interface between academia and industry. And we already have inputs from the government and policy advocacy. So we'll talk about the interplay towards the end. But for now, let me move on to our next guest. for the evening. And the next guest actually needs no introduction.
Thank you so much, Karthik, for giving an opportunity. I just want,
Thanks, Riaz. And we'll of course come back shortly to you again for questions, Riaz. So our next guest, needs no introduction. We all love him, know him, Chef Kunal Kapoor, who is the celebrity chef, and he's got an illustrious career, which started, after he has learned his lessons about cooking from his father and grandfather. It's a legacy, and he started his career with the Taj Group of Hotels. He has also been an executive sous chef with Leela Kempinski in Gurgaon. In 2008, he was rated as the best Indian chef by India Today and was titled as the next big guy in kebabs and curries in India. He's also presented Sattvic cuisine to Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi and German Chancellor Miss Merkel a few years ago. And he has also cooked for more than 42 First Ladies in the India-African Summit. And he has got a very interesting and interactive approach to doing cooking sessions. And he also opened a restaurant which received the Best Restaurants Award. And he's got an in-depth understanding of the regional Indian cuisine, and he has learned from the best in the industry, and he's been a chef to the world's well-known people. And we've all followed his shows. I know my mom has. She's a big fan of you, Kunal. MasterChef India season 1, 2, and 3. MasterChef America also. He was invited as a judge in season 2. So without further ado, I would like to welcome you, Kunal. And I think it's very interesting if you can touch upon, apart from being a chef and a celebrity chef, what kind of opportunity do you see for people in your profession to set up their own skill development, online portals, YouTube channels? We are seeing in the West that's becoming a big deal, right? Getting partnerships around recipes, getting all the ecosystem players, creating a marketplace. So, how do you see that sort of an alternative career option as well for an individual in this gig economy who comes from, your set of skills and background? So over to you, Kunal. Warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Karthik, for the warm welcome. Being a chef and being a hotelier all my life, there is one thing that we are always told, that no amount of training or no amount of experience can match the customer who's going to walk in and ask you what he wants. You cannot match it. He'll be just pulling out something from his perception that this is what I want, or delight me. You may bring out your best foot forward, but yet it does not impress him. So the only training that we've always given is to as per the situation, adapt fast, and make sure that you think out of the box and delight the customer then and there. There is no tomorrow, because by then it's too late, too delayed. And that kind of holds true, very true for the current situation that we are in, that we need to switch gears, and we need to switch gears fast. And I saying that is easy, possibly in a position that I am, that arey aisa kar lo ho jayega. But it's a little difficult. But you have to adapt. And what I'm trying to drive the point out here is that think of alternative careers. Think of things that are not mainstream, but with times like these, with the kind of technology that we have now, with things really moving fast, you can really switch gears, and you can really join. Somebody was mentioning that you have to think 2 years ahead. So you can really switch gears and join something or start something of your own. So I think my advice to anybody and everybody, especially who is related to food industry, because food, again, along with tourism, is one of the industries that is greatly impacted, is that don't wait for somebody to employ you. Create your own employment, generate your own employment. And for that, you don't need a skill set which is out of this world. We all cook food at home, for example. And if you are somebody who does not understand cooking, but if you have a mom who cooks well, or if you have a sister who cooks very well, or if you have a father or grandfather who does excellent cooking, and you're somebody who is sitting in the heartland of India, open your own restaurant. Your social media is not for you to just put on your beautiful selfies and the places that you visited in 2019, but it is also about the daily regional Indian food that you're eating. Put it out there. Your social media is your restaurant. If I look at a huge trend, let's say in the entire COVID during the entire lockdown. If you look at your newspaper, one, it wasn't delivered to most houses. Second, the size of the newspaper was lean, like it was on diet because it was starving, because there were no brands who were advertising on newspapers because nobody was reading them. They simply shifted to the entire digital medium. And I'm not just talking about news. I'm talking about anybody and everybody who had a skill. If somebody has a skill who can make you laugh and is on to takes onto an Instagram or a YouTube or a Facebook, is is the carrier of that a particular brand to get interested and say, hey, I'm going to invest on this guy, and make sure that next time he does his funny video, I'm going to sponsor him. So anything and everything that you're possibly, let's say possibly your parents always told you is useless, bhai padhai karo, ye bekar ke kaam mat karo, is the key driver. So if somebody who would love to sketch, this is the time, bring it out. This will become your mainstream. This will become something which will get you your daily income, which will get you your monies. Because what we were up till now talking in the entire conversation is at a very larger level, and not everybody can think like that. And I appreciate all the people who've contributed immensely. But I'm concentrating on individual people, that agar aapke paas koi hunar hai, kuch bhi hai, whether it's food, whether it's a recipe, or somebody in your family who has a talent, bring it out on social media. And for food people, you don't wait for your restaurant to open to hire you back. Your social media is your restaurant. For all the skilled chefs, like you rightly mentioned, across the world, whose Michelin star restaurants absolutely closed down, they have absolutely no work, and a very big pride to kind of cook for a mediocre restaurant or a takeaway, have also finally shifted to master classes, to curating special menus, which are paid only, and hence creating a stream of revenue, not for just themselves, but for a battery of people that they employ. So slowly, gradually, there's a huge shift. Like I said, if you have a skill, people will pay to watch you do that skill on social media, and it's absolutely free. You don't have to have a budget or a big investment there. It's just that, and sometimes what happens is that it becomes a family affair. It becomes like a mom pop shop, where you could be let's say a marketing, or you were not even in food, you were in a marketing or a sales business. You have online courses that you can offer on people, how to develop your skills, how to talk effectively, how to sell something more effectively. Anything and everything is content, and content right now is gold, and this gold translates into your daily wage or your monthly salary. And at the same time, try and employ people of a certain stature which do not have the access or the ability to go to a school or a college. For example, what I've started in my own little zone, because I have a maid who comes to the house, who's cleaning, and whose husband lost his job, and kids don't go to school now because they have to work and to make them ends meet and everything. So I was like, okay, you start working with me. I'll teach you two things. I'll teach you a chola bhatura, and I'll teach you a dosa how to make. And slowly, gradually, what I want you to do is that I will also gather some funds for you, and we will give you a cart. Your father, if he's unemployed, make that one dish, let's say dosa on the roadside with your cart, and let that become your business, so that you can earn out of it. So you don't have to always think very big, because not everybody can think big. You need to think small and make it work, make it happen, do it. If you don't do it, you will certainly not go anywhere. But the chances of failure are far less. There could be a huge margin of success, a huge margin of learning that happens with something so basic and something so simple. So I think that's the entire approach that I have, or I would suggest to people, is to not wait for anybody to hire you. Create your own employment. You already know what to do. You already have a certain skill set. Just go out there and start showcasing, talk about it, which we've never been talking to people out there. Use social media as your tool, as your resume.
Right. I think it's a beautiful couple of points, Kunal. One is around whatever skill you may have, just start showing it, and people will critique it, comment on it, and then you build on top of it, right? And secondly, it doesn't cost a lot of money. Use social media, it's free. and slowly build your audience with your friends and family. And if you're really doing something interesting, they'll make it viral, right? We have seen so many successful case studies like this. I think some Baba Ka Dhaba and these kind of stories on social media, we've all seen, right?
Absolutely.
It's already there. So I think what Chef Kunal is saying is something which is already happening in pockets. But I think it's really interesting to see how we can just start to showcase our skills and not wait for somebody to teach us, train us, and then I can see Dr. Pawan smiling at it. But I think it's a bit of alternative approach to skilling, Dr. Pawan, that whatever you know, just start showcasing and then learn on the go and start small. It's okay to think of building $1 billion company, but I think it's always hard to take the first step. So that's a really positive vibe which you have shared with us, Chef Kunal. Thank you so much.
Thank you
For your inputs, and people are sharing a lot of questions. So we're gonna share it with you two at the end again as well.
Sure.
So I'm gonna thanks again, Chef Kunal. So next, I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
invite Shri Rajan Sehgal, who is the Chairman, Skill in Education, Travel Agents Association of India, TAI, and co-founder Passionals. And I think Dr. and Mr. Rajan Sehgal, I was talking to him a while ago. I think he was one of the earliest, or I think probably the first batch of people who did tourism from University of Delhi. So he's actually seen the entire evolution of skill development in travel and tourism space. And I think he also has very interesting perspectives in terms of how, even in light of technology, travel still remains a very high touch, high interaction business. And we still need people who can talk to individuals, and that manual interaction is not going to go anywhere anytime soon. So I think it's going to be very interesting to hear his perspective. He has got an illustrious career. He has been the chairman of TAI, president of IGTA, India Golf Tourism Association. He started his company Arrivals Air Services 3 decades ago, and he's been a serial entrepreneur himself. And he's been the co-chairman of Tourism Committee in PHT Chamber of Commerce, and he's also part of the FICCI Tourism Committee. So with this, a very warm welcome to you, Rajanji, and we would love to hear your thoughts in terms of how do you see that still that in even in light of technology, how travel still remains a pretty much a manual business, and you still need people to advise you, guide you, and support you when you get stuck.
Okay, good evening to all. Thank you, Karthik, for giving my introduction. I was in the second batch of Delhi University. I am a follower of Mr. Pranab Sarkar. Pranab Sarkar was the first batch. I was the second batch of the College of Vocational Studies in Delhi University. That was a 3 years graduation course, and then we did a 2 years post-graduation in tourism. So when I got my degree in graduation, I was the most happiest person. I said, I am the most disciplined, intelligent person. So I went to a very big travel company with my degree that I will definitely get a job. But when I went for my interview, because live examples are very important and giving facts, figures and some future. When I went sitting in front of the director of the company, he asked me, the degree is okay, but what's your practical experience? Have you worked anywhere? I said, sir, if you don't give me a job, how will I get the experience? He said, no, we need people who have already got job experience. So I was trying to convince him. He was trying to convince me that he needs a job experience. I was showing him my degree of 3 years with the German language. And at that time, computers were not there. So I was not able to convince him. So when I was getting down from the stairs of that particular office, I decided there and then that I will train myself in such a way after a few years that whenever I go to teach in various universities, I will train them in such a way that they are ready, when they finish their course, they are ready to get a job in a travel company. So Karthik, after say almost 8 or 10 years after working with various, after that I was refused to give a job. I got a job in Lufthansa German Airlines, and it was a blessing for me because they sent me at least 3 times to one of their best training center in Germany, Zeeheim, which I still, it was the best day of my learning of my life, because once you are trained in Zeeheim, I think you cannot fail. Still, I am giving best fares or best geographical information than the computer gives, which I challenge to my staff also. That's thanks to the Zheim, my college 3 years course. And, when I joined another company, ITC, as a travel head, and, we used to have counters at various 5-star hotels of ITC. So our office used to be in Connaught Place, and we have an office in Moria Sheraton also at that time. And yes, in the evening when I was sitting with my manager, and they used to get a call from Moria that how many tickets you have reconfirmed. At that time, one has to reconfirm the tickets if you have a confirmed booking also. So they said we have 10 bookings reconfirmed, sir, and we charge 350 rupees each reconfirmation. So I was very surprised that they are sitting at a gold mine, which is the Moria. They are getting one of the best customers, and they are happy with the reconfirmation of 10 tickets at the rate of 350 rupees. So I requested my management that can I go and sit in the Moria Sheraton office for some time. They said, what will you do? I said, give me 1 week or 10 days time. So when the gentleman, when a Britisher or an American came to my counter and at Moria and said, please reconfirm my seat. And I saw his ticket. I said, sir, this is a business class ticket, Delhi, London on British Airways. If you can refund your ticket, and I'll give you in a lesser price, first class ticket, Delhi to London. He said, you are joking. I said, no, you give me a chance. I will give your ticket, because the fares from India were cheaper than fares from Europe. So, that when I gave this ticket of first class and he refunded his ticket, which he bought in Europe and saved some money also, he was the most happiest and permanent customer of Travel House. And I started this trend, and our sale and profit of Moria Sheraton office has gone up than the city office, which is the main office. So this is called skill and training, how to use your mind. And then I train my staff accordingly. And one day, we got a complaint from one of a very big multinational company that our boss was giving a domestic booking. And when he wants to give an international booking, he was asked to transfer from domestic department to international. And during that, he has to hold on for 3 to 4 minutes. Then I went to my managing director. I said, sir, I want to open a new branch for Travel House, which is a multi-skill. One person will handle domestic, international, car rental, hotel bookings, everything. He said, it's a great idea. So then we started a new IATA location in Vasant Vihar, where we hired new people from the Travel and Tourism Institute, trained them in such a way that if he gets a call, he can do a domestic booking, he can take his international booking, give him an insurance, car rental, railway booking, anything. So, the clients were getting a very good feedback to the company that we are very satisfied because one person is our contact point in your company and he has given. So this same trend is now required. Whenever the travel and tourism will open, I don't think it will open in the next 1 year. I am telling you, because last 8 months we are listening 3 months. Europe opened again, it's going for lockdown. India, Delhi was the most safest place, but it's again going on in a big way. So we have to wait and we have to train ourselves. In the last 7 months, when I was sitting, I realized that we have to train people in multi-skill, multitask. They have to look for new destination. Whenever the travel and tourism will open, the game will be totally changed one. The countries will not go for number of tourists they are getting. They will go for number of responsible and safe travelers they will be getting for the next 2 to 3 years. So we don't have to go for the numbers that we have to get maximum tourists from China or from America. We have to get safe and responsible. So the domestic tourism will start. We do lots of training in our tie in the Travel Agents Association of India with foreign tourism boards, like a specialist program for South Africa, for Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore. But now we are working with Ministry of Tourism, whereby we can make our staff India specialists. They should know about their country first, then selling, selling abroad, because outbound will not start in the next 1 year, because the countries will be very much worried to get quality people or safe and responsible traveler. So this is my go, and there are lots of new segments which are coming. When I was giving a lecture in IITM Gwalior a few months back before the lockdown, I was showing the rosy picture to the students, and one student got up and he said, "Sir, every industry is going in recession. How you can say that travel and tourism will boom?" I said, everything is related to travel and tourism, whether it's a wedding or a religion or a business or going to meet relatives. I said, when there is a recession, the Europeans go in depression. But when there is a recession, Indians go to God, to pilgrimage. Why don't you become a pilgrimage tourism specialist? And you can sell lots of pilgrimage tours, and people will not compromise when they are going to meet the God, So you can make good money. Similarly, 3 years back, I changed my travel business. I have not stopped my travel business, but I shifted to golf tourism, film tourism, heritage tourism. And can you believe this is more creative, give you lots of money? And after this lockdown, you have seen the golf courses are the first one which are open. The tournaments have started in America. So wedding tourism will also start, but in a different way. So I don't want to take more time, but one has to train himself in a multi-skill, multitask, and you have to do collaborations. You can't do everything on your own. If somebody is event specialist, you have to merge with him. If somebody is specialist in domestic or in some particular segment, you have to merge with him. You can't do it on your own. So that is my.
That's a great thought, Rajanji. I think collaboration is the name of the game. I think Ashish was also referring to it, that now is the time to collaborate and not compete. So I think that's a great thought. And also around first seeing your India country first. I think that's also aligned to the government of India's tourism ministry's mission of Dekho Apna Desh Pehle and then go abroad. So I think that's two good points.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on. In the interest of time, we're going to extend by 10 to 15 minutes because we still have few panelists remaining. So, but I'm going to again reharp and request to panelists to keep the initial introduction to 3 to 4 minutes because I've got more than 40 questions. I don't know how we'll cover it. We'll be here whole night. So with this, I'm going to request Dr. Pawan Gupta. He's the nodal officer, IITTM Noida. And I think we've all been talking about the entire pressure now percolates down to the supply side. We're talking about what the industry needs, what the government wants, what kind of job opportunities remain to be seen. But I think the supply side is where has been silent till now. And I think we would love to hear from Dr. Pawan Gupta. He's got an illustrious career himself. He's a doctorate of philosophy in tourism management from the University of Lucknow. He has also done various courses in wildlife tourism. He's well versed with the various ecosystem components of the travel industry. And he has also worked as the controller of examinations in the Institute of Tourism Studies, University of Lucknow. And he has also been instrumental in promoting tourism as a vocational subject and has trained more than 6,000 people for their career development. So he's a sort of practices what he preach. So I think it's really great to have you, Dr. Pawan, and we would love to hear from you what the academia is thinking of all this high level discussion that's happening. What do you think the academia will churn out?
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, and good evening and Jai Hind to all the fellow participants over here. Though you've limited the time, so I'll very quickly go through 4-5 pertinent questions because we are still on a question: what skill set is required and who's going to impart that skill set? That is yet to be answered. So if you look at the whole gamut of skilling people, so we have to look at one thing, that we are in a very huge transformational age as far as work is concerned, and we should not look towards work as a commodity. So we are talking a lot about technology, but technology should always be a value addition. The other skill sets will always remain there in our industry, right? Like the cognitive skill of learning or how to handle customers. These things technology is not going to teach you. So when we look at the entire gamut of, I think there are 4 quadrants to this, 4 matrices to the entire skilling gamut. One is the public sector, one is the private sector, one is the workers and students, and then comes the education institutions that are we the educationists on the supply side. So I would have loved to see more public sector people present over here, apart from Ma'am Brar, who are the policymakers. And of course, we are missing on the most important point, which are the workers or the students. We are missing on these panel discussions. So these panel discussions are more industry loaded. So I would love to see more people from the education side and from the worker side so that we can hear their point of view as well. What do they require and how do they want them to be getting into these things? So transformation age is there. There was a paradigm that you finish studying to start working. I think that era has gone. It's a bygone era now. It is an era of continuous learning. So what we study today will become obsolete tomorrow. So we have to keep on continuously learning. And I feel the industry has to do a lot of hand holding for the education institutions in this regard. One point very pertinently was put by Mr. Rajan, that we forget about the trainers, right? The teachers. So the industry needs to do a bit of introspection, how to train the trainers, first of all, so that we churn out the more skilled manpower for the industry. So I will take this platform to urge Pranab, Vicky, and all the industry players over here to do some sort of hand holding for the teachers, the educationers, right, the educators, so that they are also skilled in the latest technologies and the latest trends, and they impart accordingly. If we are not well trained, we will never churn out more and better skilled manpower. So there are certain institutions like ITTM who are constantly in touch with the industry. Like during the pandemic, it was a great opportunity for us to organize an industry speak initiative. So we conducted almost 50 webinars under this banner of industry speaks, and I think half of the panel was an invited speaker in that. So that way our students get a lot of benefit because of all these activities. But there are 100 universities and institutions which impart tourism and hospitality education in India, and how many of them are actually close to the industry? So this is the supply. I mean, the darker side of the supply. The teachers themselves have to be trained first. So I would urge FICCI and ATO to have some sabbatical programs for the teachers of the tourism institutions and hospitality institutions, so that they can come and actually learn on the job. Not just the student, but the teachers also learn on the job. So we should not treat work as a commodity. Then attracting and retaining talent is a big challenge in our industry. I believe once the pandemic is over, at least 25 to 35% of the people working in industry will leave this industry and switch over to some other industry. I've seen a lot of students switching over to FMCG because there are no jobs left and they feel more secure in a FMCG sort of sector. कि ठीक है sir, sales करना है, तो rather than selling the tour packages, now I'm ready to sell a shampoo. At least my job is secure. So we'll face this challenge after the pandemic is over. So we need to attract the talent and we need to retain them as well. So continuous learning should be the keyword for me. It is a learning process. It is not a 2 years degree process. It is a lifelong process wherein the industry needs to play a bigger role so that people come and do a lot of things. And lastly, I would say that the best way to predict future is to create it. These are the famous words said by the management guru Peter Drucker. And it's very difficult actually. What we used to teach 5 years back is obsolete now, right? So what we require in 5 years coming, it's very difficult to gauge it. But I am very sure the kind of students we are having more passionate people now. And I'll tell you, out of the 80 odd students in my MBA class, 18 of them are engineers. Wow. So they've come into this industry with a passion, and maybe in 5 years down the line, we'll have very technology headed people. So we don't have to teach them the technology as we had to teach ourselves to, come to the level of where the industry has grown. Maybe 5 years down the line, we'll have very tech savvy people coming to our education institutions. So teaching them technology won't be our job. We just have to teach them over the intricacies of the tourism and hospitality industry. So I am very optimistic with the kind of people coming into our education institutions, the type of people who are churning out. I think it's just a great learning curve for the education institutions also. And with the support of industry, I'm very optimistic in the 21st century, we are going to have a very, very highly skilled mindset of the students coming out of these education institutions. But all said and done, industry needs a bit of handholding for the education institution so that we churn out the best possible people. So I think jobs that will be created will known as the STEM jobs, with technology, engineering and management, along with the cognitive skills like empathy, customer care, and all.
Right.
So empathy jobs will be the word for me for the future.
Perfect. I think, Dr. Pawan, you rightly said that industry also needs to come up with more sabbatical programs where we have people from industry getting skilled, and at the same time they also teaching the students, that what's happening in the industry on the ground. So that sort of a apprenticeship program, and then also creating a faculty development program is very important, because many times I think in these discussions the role of a faculty gets diluted, but that's the most important.
See, we do have FDPs for the faculties and MDPs also, but the organizers of these FDPs are again the academicians.
Right.
Now,
That's
I know a
the
lot of teachers who have not traveled outside their state.
right, right. So
Right.
I think that's
I'm
the role
teaching
of
travel and sea management, or I'm teaching tour operations, I'm teaching the tourism products, but I'm teaching Taj Mahal without seeing the Taj Mahal or without even experiencing it. So that gap of the trainers has to be reduced with the help of the industry.
Right. But I think we've got all the people here, Ioto, Otoi, Fiki, and between the 3-4 of them, I think we
Yes, we are closely in touch with Pranab Da, Mr. Sehgal, Mr. Goel. सबसे हम लोग का almost हर हफ्ते की चर्चा है, and we are very thankful to the industry, at least for ITTM. They have always been in the forefront to help us.
Absolutely. And I think
in fact, Karthik, IATO has initiated the skill development where we have invited all the institutions and the education. IITTM has also been invited for many such programs, and they are participating, including the students and teachers. If I'm not wrong, Dr. Pawan can correct.
Yeah, very much. We are always thankful to associations like IATO. They've been always great help for us.
Great. And I think we'll come back to some of the questions around skilling as well. A lot of people have asked around various changes in the courses, what kind of new technologies are being
I'll just take 30 seconds more, the relevant skills, because we have not talked about that, that the skills that will be requiring in coming 4-5 years. First will be digital and IT skills, which is becoming imperative in today's world. But still, I would say the customer focus for our industry, the experience focus will remain there. We cannot, there's no alternative to that. Then data analytics, operations, commercial, and of course, leadership and management and administrative and finance. So these things clubbed together with creativity and innovation will be the skills that will be requiring. But let's not forget, creativity, innovation is one skill set which precedes the technological advancements.
Right.
So that will be the core for tourism industry as well.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Pawan, for those insights. And in the interest of time, I'm going to again repeat that let's keep the initial introduction for 3 to 4 minutes. We're already past our scheduled time. So we are really lucky to have today the second celebrity chef of the evening, Chef Rajiv Goel, who's the founder of India Food Travel and president of India Food Tourism Organization. Rajiv is a culinary impresario and a fine connoisseur, and he's an excellent guide of the various aspects of the Indian cuisine. He has done extensive research in Indian spices and indigenous recipes over the years, and he has culminated all those experiences and his findings into various culinary tours. And he co-founded the first specialized culinary tour company in India called the India Food Tour, which does food tours, cooking classes, and other travel services operated by this organization that rank among the best culinary activities on TripAdvisor, Viator, and Google. And he is some of the various famous celebrity chefs that he has catered to for include Padma Lakshmi, Pascal Jale, Marion Craspi, MasterChef, all the Michelin star big names we all adore and have heard of. He has been working with them, and he has also been working with restaurant owner Mother India Norway, and he is a very well known chef and a culinary tour operator in the Indian ecosystem. So very lucky to have you with us, Rajiv, and we would love to hear your thoughts around, how did you come up? So this is also a completely new idea, right? In terms of what even Chef Kunal was saying, that how do you really create a new category? I mean, you are from a certain skill set and you enter another industry and create a hybrid melange of those two skill sets and create a culinary tour. So I think it's a really interesting innovation. We would love to hear from you. How did you come up with this idea, and what others can learn from your experience of curating such niche experiences?
Thank you, Kunal. I'm going to keep it a little quick and easy. Thanks for the intro. But just for a quick note, so travel and food is both my passion. And when I entered this business almost 11 years ago to start something with the travel, but I don't wanted to get away from the food, being a restaurant and kitchen person. So I was trying to think that how and what will be the most highest selling commodity. And if you still calculate within your travel, out of the 5-day travel, the most done activity is still food. In the 5-day itinerary, you eat at least 15 times compared to going to the monument or staying in the hotel. You still say 5-day in the hotel and you do whatever. You cannot beat the number of 15 by anything. So you're eating 3 times a day. So why not to change the prospect or keep the two more focused towards one thing and, how to make it more interesting. Said that one, and luckily, getting born in India, the country like India, you have a various opportunities, that you don't have to repeat the thing. If you start with one, you can end up alive here trying the new dish. So I think that's one of the most important and sometimes most ignored part of the inbound or the travel itineraries. So I found the vacuum and I started or thought to fill it up. So from the day one, the skilling was one of the most important part of my trade because this is a new stream. And you don't have a person. Maybe there's enough people who knows what they're doing in terms of bookings, hotel bookings, and anything. But what is a food tour? What is a culinary tour should be? And what should be the map where one can, really put together the cultural effects and our traditions. So that's how this thing came in first. And how I continue to do so far is the love for the food. If you really go by the surveys, so 60% plus people it's been found that are very, very interested in the food when they're traveling. So they really go by the Google and 68% plus people look out for the food when they're traveling to a new destination, that what to eat and where to eat. Now that's what the trend I'm talking about. If you go by the Facebook and the Google, that's most, the picture, if you go by the density, the most pictures on the internet right now is the food. So why to miss it out? So that's how I hold it up, the stream of culinary tourism or food tourism. And as I said, that the country I'm living in have enough to offer and you don't have to repeat a dish. So I understand the time crunch here. So I'm going to be a little more crisp and clear about it. For me, the skill that I look forward and also want people to focus on would be the regional, because that is where people are missing it out. The regional food, regional culture. We can look out for a lot of storytellers and the home chefs or cooks. And I really look forward for Rajan talk to other people like in this panel, Rajan J and IITTM, that should introduce certain courses. The government of India, the Ministry of Tourism already have one storyteller program right now, which is a very good time that people should opt for it, that one should go and do it. But beside that, like Ministry have understood the power of storytelling. So they have already introduced a program that where a common person who haven't been to the institute for long years, but can be a storyteller because he has his own unique content. But at the same time, where the skill part is concerned, that some people who cook home chefs who do good food or who know or carry a good regional food knowledge can scale up their skills by learning how to cook for the masses. At the same time, hotels should entertain such experts from their regions where they can enjoy food. And also same time, I look towards the homestay and a home food segment growing rapidly, or at this pandemic time, my preference is already shifted from the started hotel to the homestays and small hotels or boutique hotels where I've been taken care much more personally. And that's exactly the same set I'm talking about. So why not to, and food is one of the other segment that, for example, if you're visiting any state which doesn't carry any Mughal or traditional monument, but food could be one of the highlights to be there. So it also increases the size of pie rather than, we struggle getting the bigger size of my cut there. I increase the size of pie so that people can, visit the places just focused by their culinary heritage or the cultural heritage. And suddenly you find that where we can toply list 50 to 60 cities or states, that 50, 60 cities right now, suddenly highlighting the regional highlight of food or a culture can bring up like more product or more visitable places on the country. And at the same time, so that it also drive you to be a little more technology that when you start learning, I think that's another thing to how to show it right. So as Kunal also mentioned about the power of social media, I couldn't agree more. Both or all the companies that I run right now started from the day one as a B2C platform, or you can say the web platform. And trust me, I've been successful so far. And selecting a person, Rajanji also mentioned, Segalji, about that when you choosing between the person, initially he was sharing his experience about the first job that when he went to. So far my criteria about selecting the people are open-mindedness rather than what the experience they carry. I've been constantly in touch with Pawanji, and I still say that one of the best institute to hire people from. That where I get one of the best students with an open mind, rather than, because I'm not looking for anything what you have done in past 10 years, but I look for your attitude right now towards what you're coming to you. So I think that's very, very important segment that one should not ignore, that what you carry right now. Of course, the experience matters, but in the current scenario where a lot of logics have been faded already, the current attitude will make sure or make you understand what and how you're going to be next 2 or 5 years.
Right. And I think we're going to come back again, Rajiv ji.
Sure. I understand that. Please.
But I think thanks again, Rajiv ji. I think we are taking away the key point of regionalism and how we can really put in vernacular, as Ashish ji was also saying, that how we can really incorporate those elements of regional culinary, regional requirements, vernacular. And I think that's really interesting to sort of work on. And I'm going to move on to our next speaker, who is Mr. Karan Jain. He's the co-founder of Rev. And I think it's really interesting to have somebody from the startup side of the industry as well to participate in this discussion. Karan is the founder of Rev, which is a car sharing and subscriptions platform. Rev was launched in 2015 and now has more than 3,500 vehicles across 22 cities in India. Karan used to work at McKinsey for more than 12 years, where he was part of the core leadership team of the oil and gas energy practice in Asia, and then a corporate person turned entrepreneur, a very famous cliched story. But I think it's really interesting to hear from you, Karan, because I think you are also from a non sort of a travel ecosystem. You entered into this space, and I can tell you from my experience, because I was also a non-travel person, entered in the travel space, and I saw a lot of interesting, let's just say, the aspects of the industry and how it works. So I'm sure you would have also experienced the same. And even the supply side and skilling requirements and the expectations of people are very different in travel industry compared to other, especially in the oil and gas industry where you have worked. You would have seen massive shift in terms of everything, right? So it'll be really interesting to see where you see as a potential buyer of these skills. How do you see those requirements changing, and how do you see the current set of skills which are supplied by institutions like IITTM? Where do you see it sort of fall short, and what can be done to sort of improve their curriculum? So welcome, Karan.
Thanks so much for both the introduction as well as the welcome, Karthik. You are right. I mean, travel, of course, as a sector is very different from many others, in that it's far more sort of customer centric, very high touch points, and so on and so forth. And therefore, any company that is willing to kind of grow and be successful in the sector obviously needs to take cognizance of that. I will try and keep this as short as possible. And obviously, a lot of what I wanted to say have perhaps already been covered by some of my co-panelists. But just to sort of set the context, I guess a few observations. One, I'm hoping that this virus will get defeated sometime very soon. But this is surely not the end. And I do think some of the shift in consumer mindsets and habits are perhaps here to stay. Someone in the panel already spoke about hygiene and sanitization being looked at extremely differently than it has in the past. And therefore, I think any business needs to take, as I mentioned, cognizance of that. Business-related travel requirements, I believe, will undergo a massive shift. Many organizations, including ours, have perhaps through the pandemic discovered a new normal. Work from home has become a reality, and a lot of organizations, not fully, but at least partially, are planning to sort of continue this new normal. I think, therefore, travel, while need for personal touch cannot be substituted, and I think that will definitely stay. I think travel will perhaps be driven by much more of want than just need or necessity, in my opinion. Of course, what we are seeing right now is an extreme. And I do think that this is likely to normalize soon. That said, it will normalize towards the new normal. So that's how I see this panning out. Now, I think a lot has been spoken about in context of upskilling at the bottom of the pyramid or towards the bottom half of the pyramid. I'd like to make a few observations or comments around actually also on the top of the pyramid, which in my opinion is equally important. I think the business landscape is and will continue to change, and therefore as business leaders we perhaps need to lead from the front, and in certain cases be willing to completely sort of press the reset button and change completely, including sort of re-engineering our organizations, getting completely new talent which historically has not been present into the organization, set up new businesses, business processes, etc. I think the second point that I'd like to make is the business economics, at least in part of the sectors, might actually undergo a substantial shift. And therefore, how do you create an organization that is adapting to these requirements and the new business reality will almost be critical to survive. Demand levels or utilization levels might, for a reasonable amount of time, if not forever, might actually end up being very different from what we've witnessed in the past. And therefore, how do you create nimble structures within the organization, both from a revenue as well as on the cost front, to make sure you can survive and thrive in this environment is going to be important. And needless to say, of course, technology is going to play a critical role, both at the front end while serving the customer. I mean, today we're already seeing in the hospitality sector, things like, which weren't for a long time prevalent, things like contactless service, digital ordering, automated payments, and so on and so forth. And around that, add to the new business models of home delivery, etc. These are here to stay, and therefore the entire sort of business ecosystem is around us is going to change. I think what is critical, as in all disruptions, this crisis also presents an opportunity. I think those organizations that will be nimble enough to change and adapt, and those organizations that will recruit the right talent and provide them the right skill set, and continue to upgrade that skill set, I think they will continue to survive and thrive, like I said. And like in all cases of evolution, those that will not will perhaps make way for the others. So I guess to cut the long story short, we are living in an ever-changing world that has been accelerated by the pandemic. I think it is the onus is on us as business leaders to recognize the change and also lead from the front to make sure our organizations can be successful in this changing environment.
Thanks, Karan. And I think it's really interesting to see that. And I think it also comes back to the same point which Ashish started around Kodak Moment, that you have to really preempt and be skill ready right now, rather than just wait that, oh, this is just, many people I speak to, they think that, oh, this is just a temporary situation because of COVID. After 2 years, everything will be back to normal. No, this sanitation will not happen, no contactless. But I think it would be prudent if one imagines a world which will still have many components of these new world order parameters, and plan accordingly, rather than just like a pigeon, just close your eyes and say, oh, this too shall pass and I'll go back to my old ways of working. So I think that's Correct. A call we need to take as business leaders. So we are now at the end of today's session with our last speaker, and I think it's a very opportune moment to have you, Yuvraj Srivastava, the Chief Human Officer for Make My Trip. And I think we've covered industry, we've covered the supply side, we've covered the buy side, but I think at the entry of supply and buy side is the HR, right? Who want to make sure that only the right people sort of pass through from supply to buy side. And I think Yuvraj has got an amazing journey, and it's very interesting. Many of you may or may not know, he was a commissioned officer with the Indian Armed Forces for 5.5 years, and then he shifted to corporate, and he's got more than 18 years of experience in corporate HR now, working in organizations like PepsiCo, the Oberoi, Asian Paints, and now, of course, with Make My Trip for a long time now. And I think it will be really interesting to hear from you, Yuvraj, that how do you see, because I mean, as an HR, you typically tend to liaison with both the academic institution as well as internally how for example, Make My Trip in itself is the industry leader and defines the growth territory of, and even the processes and protocols of the industry in many ways are represented by what's happening at MMT. So I think you have a bigger responsibility at play here to help us understand that how large organizations are looking at this, reskilling at that level, and how do you see the supply side? We have heard from Dr. Pawan, we have heard from other stakeholders, but how do you see as an HR, because you're interviewing them and you're really assessing them whether they are ready to be employed or not. So how do you see that interplay happening, Yuvraj?
Great. I think thanks, Karthik, and good evening, everyone. For last 1 hour, I was appreciating few things. One was the patience of the moderator, Karthik Sharma. At the end of it, everyone he says that I'll come back in the second round. I don't know when will that second round happen, Karthik. I hope you are not. And you were also talking, and you were also talking about many questions you have in your kitty which you will ask from others. I don't know when are you going to really ask those questions. So that was one. Second observation I was having that it's good to have hard hitters in the team, but if you have all the hard hitters till the tail end, I think that you are going to have a lot of thoughts and a lot of discussions which can be very, very engrossing. So it's a solid session. What I must say that last 8 speakers, whatever perspective they brought in. And third point also, I felt that it's better to wait and then speak rather than waiting after speaking. So I don't know, all those Ashish or Rajan, all those who would have already spoken 1 hour back, I don't know how would they be feeling, but I was feeling pretty enriched by many of the insights shared by all of you.
They've taken their nap. I can see.
I and others were still thinking that when they will be called. So I think it's good to be here, and thanks a lot for organizing this. I'll not take much time. I'll try to follow your instructions the way others have followed. So just mark my word, the way others have followed, I'll also follow your instructions of keeping it sharp and crisp. There are a few things which has happened. From our point of view, we look at the industry very closely. We look at the hotels, we look at the supply, we look at the talent. We also look at small players, big players, because we aggregate everyone. We have data which really gives us a sense that what is happening in what part of the country and in what sort of a segment. So that gives a very close vantage point for us to really understand. And when I have to really look at linking it with the skills, what will be relevant going forward, I think there are 3 insights which comes out. Karthik, Rajan and Ashish and all the people who have been in the panel would know it better than me. Is that our business has moved from offline to online. I think that there's been always a huge interest and effort by the organizations like us to really move traffic from offline to online, and we have definitely seen a greater shift happening towards online bookings in the hotels or the flights or even all package booking. So that's one insight which one can really look at. Second, what has happened is domestic travel has started growing, and it has grown by the sheer force of outbound being completely shut, right? So that's the second trend which has happened. And third is a reality, and reality which we all must have seen, and veterans in this field would have seen it in the last 20, 25 years many times. Our industry, when it comes to travel and hospitality, is not something which can always be driven by us. It has huge reliance on the external factors which are beyond your control. So what those controls are, those factors are, clearly, if you have a Uttarakhand, natural calamity, your industry gets impacted. If you have a 26/11, 9/11 happen, your industry gets impacted. If there's an economy downturn happens, your industry gets impacted. Regulatory environment, if it starts changing, your industry gets impacted. So if you look at point of domestic travel increasing, point of online traffic coming more than the offline or other increase in that, and third, your dependence on the environment in which you operate. All these 3 throws few things which are very, very important and relevant for all of us to look at. One, clearly, we need to focus on creating entrepreneurial mindset in the minds of people. One, is that what other Karan and Rajiv and Kunal also spoke about. People need to create entrepreneurial mindset, and we need to start looking at helping people develop skills which they can be sustained in terms of their living and also profession. That is first. Second is technology will start playing very important role now, more than earlier. We used to have huge amount of relationship. We still have huge relationship with the 4-star, 5-star large properties, but the time is that back-end integration of the smaller properties in the nooks and corners of the country starts happening at a far faster rate. What does that really mean? People who are working in the properties needs to be clearly more agile, understanding and aware of the technologies in terms of whether it's an intranet or portals, or how do you really manage the properties, and how do you integrate, how do you get the APIs and all that stuff. So I think that technology will clearly become very important for people. Third is, I think a ecosystem needs to be created and will have to be created to ensure that local pool of talent works in the local pool area. And that takes to the point of migration of people from Uttarakhand to Bombay, from Bombay to Uttarakhand to Bihar, to nooks and corners of the country. When people migrated and things were still not working, because people were not there as skilled workforce. Uttarakhand will have many, South will have many people, but they won't really be working in those areas. I think the localization of systems, local talent pools available will have to be created very strongly. Then only the industry will start thriving even in the awkward situations. And the fourth point, which I wanted to also bring in based on my experience, is that in our organization, where our largest focus had been to create content for the properties and assets, we realized that the properties and assets which are now people are looking at booking, biggest thing what they're looking at, how can we really have a reviews, how can we have the right content, and we deployed many people, additional workforce, really create content for the properties, whether it's a video content or a written content, so that at least customers can get an insight on the properties where they need to visit. So it's a content writer's job. What I'm saying is again becoming very important. If all these are important, I think it clearly gives a direction to people like Dr. Pawan Gupta, that where do we need to really take it? Do we really need to spend too much of a time on training people on the front office or on softwares, or it is also to understand how to revenue optimize while you are working in a smaller hotel, sitting in a smaller part of the country? That skill becomes important. And how can we really do it? And that is what I was trying to think. And model which was coming to my mind, and it's a very it's a socialist model, you can say, but it's also a very revolutionary model which was coming to my mind. And I'm sure that industry veterans will really look at doing something around it. It might be happening in a small scale, but needs to go to the next scale. Is that we used to have 5 Indian Institute of Managements in the country. Today we have 11 or 12. We used to have 6 or 7 ITs. There are now 18 or 19 ITs in the country. And how do they run? There are mentor ITs, which are parent ITs for the smaller ITs in the country. And there's a huge amount of exchange of knowledge, resources to develop these newer institutions. Can that something be really replicated in the industry like this? Can there be mentoring of a smaller properties happening by a chain hotel situated maybe in south or in west or in east of the country, where in a cluster of 50, 70, 80 hotels are attached for the mentorship with maybe a Oberoi property there or a Hyatt property there, and people start getting trained by them. It's not because the customer is not common, so there's not much of a cannibalizing of the clients or the customers. But I think it's a stronger ecosystem which gets created, and there's also a huge amount of interdependence comes in, trust comes in, skill building comes in, sharing of resources comes in, and that is how this whole industry will grow. Otherwise, we'll continue to operate in very small corners and not be in position to give a complete fillip to the travel hospitality in the country. These are some of the thoughts. I'm sure that I'll try to still stick to your timelines. And maybe
we have questions, Yuvraj. I'm going to hold on to you.
So these are some of the thoughts, and those are thoughts people have already brought in. But I think that it's important to move from the silos to make a ecosystem which is more enabling, interdependent, not only on papers or in platforms, but also in reality on ground. That's what my point of view would be.
And I think we're going to take your input, Yuvraj, around creating those mentors in regional clusters. And we've got Ashish here who who is the co-chairman of Travel Technology Committee. So we're going to voice some of these inputs to our tourism committee as well, and make sure that some of them can be implemented at least in certain regions in which we have a larger presence. So I'm going to now take 3 or 4 questions in the interest of time, and I'll see if it can be mapped to one of you, but otherwise feel free to add your thoughts in a concise manner for all of these questions. So we've got one question from Sabah Azhar Naqvi. Sabah is asking that, do you think organizations are now going to consider working with more and more consultants and freelancers rather than hiring them, on the payroll? So I don't know, maybe Yuvraj, you can share from an HR perspective. Are you considering at MMT hiring more and more gig workers, or are you still looking for full-time people?
I think it's an interesting question. And this, anyway, there's a huge amount of prevalence of gig workers in the hospitality industry. If you look at the banquet workforce, I think there's a huge number of people who come and go and work in other hotels in case they need to do it. In our case, yes, we have realized that gig workers in the niche areas are more important. When we also talk from the policymakers' point of view, the focus on gig workers will only get impacted if you have gig workers in the niche skill areas. Gig workers at the front line anyway happens. You go to the cine industry, there are many people who come and work on one set and then they work on the other set. In the hotels, at a lower level, people still work as a gig workers. Gig workers will only take off very, very strongly in case they start coming into the knowledge area. And that's what we need to really do. I think that in our case, we have people who will come and work for us in maybe in a design area, right? That's something which is a niche area to work for. If you need to do something maybe in the areas of content writing, you will get people who can come as a gig worker and work and go. But my dream would be, and my thought would be, that you should start having 30-40% of your workforce as a gig worker, and you start giving them that sort of a respect, that sort of a working environment, and that sort of a payouts, which so that it becomes a resource which is for the larger pool. Process has started, but we need to go to the level of next level of evolution wherein you have niche people also doing a gig working.
Okay, cool. I think we've got one question from Subha, and Subha is saying that from the supply side, things will improve only if in educational institutions or in skill building institutions we remove the focus from just getting the highest marks, then to actually creating something or working with the industry and doing those sort of hands-on work rather than only focusing on getting the highest marks. I know FICCI DG Mr. Dilip Chinoy was earlier the CEO of National Skill Development Corporation, and he has been a proponent of this philosophy that we should be focusing on more skilling rather than just creating an objective metric of having the highest marks. Dr. Pawan, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I would say in say institutions like IITT, in a 2 years degree course at the master's level, 8 months are completely dedicated to on-the-job training. So that's roughly almost 35 to 40% of the entire time that a student spends with us. So we are already on this path, but I'm representing the entire Academy of Tourism, more than 100 institutions to say that. But how many of the institutions are actually very serious about this thing? That's a question mark. But majority of us, yes. Even in graduation level, we've got 2 summer internships and 1 on-the-job training. So even BBA student spends around 7 to 8 months on the job training. So I don't think so in any professional course you won't find an on-the-job training component anymore. So we do give a lot of importance for the students to actually go and work in the industry and learn the skills hands-on before you actually get the degree. And in professional courses, it hardly matters you get 90% or 80%. To be very frank, it is your creativity and innovation and your attitude that matters. So at professional courses level, I don't think so. We run for the marks.
Perfect. And we've got one more question from Priyadarshini.
If I can just sort of add to this, Karthik, with your permission.
Sure.
So basically, you're absolutely right. I think all of our QPs which are there have a blend of both theory and practice, practicals, and we have a huge apprenticeship program running where we actually do hands-on training. And 2 things happen there. One, from the point of view of the youth, they get hands-on training to the latest equipment. I mean, some of the equipment in the hospitality tourism is very sophisticated. So so by the time they finish their training, they are almost ready to get on to full-time work. From an employer's point of view, equally, they're building a ready pipeline. So whoever's coming to actually do the apprenticeship program with them, the people who are shortlisted and good are ready job. And somebody earlier said that, learn and earn. That works beautifully, but there has to be a fine blend between both of them. You can't just have theory or practice and leave the other.
Right. Fair point. So I've got two last questions which are bundled into sort of a single thought. So one is, I think Priyadarshini is asking that what are the trends in employment in the tourism research and advocacy sort of job role, which is around state tourism in tourism offices and how their role is getting evolved. And then Yosen Bhandari is asking around that how sustainability and preservation of social culture, environmental and economic components, how this overall debate of sustainability is also getting embedded, because that's one of the skills which have been identified. I know a lot of hospitality companies globally now have a chief sustainability officer, and that's a huge skill in demand. So two things, sustainability, and second is the advocacy and state tourism offices. What are the job roles and how they are getting evolved in this new world order? Anyone, Pranavda, do you want to take a shot at it?
Okay, I will try to attempt this reply, because first case to job opportunities with the state governments and their requirement is as per the government guidelines. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
As per the guidelines, and the jobs are being advertised by those state governments and the central governments. It is on the basis of that the opportunities are available, and the role of work is already defined there. So one has to look for those area how to get involved. That is number one. Number two, the opportunity, the skill and your aptitude, which is going to be the key success in the private sector. If you look at, we get lot of students coming for on-job training and from various universities, and all courses are different, so their aptitudes are also different. But there are smart boys and girls. That doesn't mean what is the academic they have learned, but implementation and grasping power that they create, that get them a job. That is very, very important, and that is where the skilling part comes for the getting a job. So we look forward for those people who are smart enough, and they can show their aptitude, so that we can sharpen their skills, and we take them on the role. It's like that.
Right. Anybody wants to quickly add any last thoughts on this?
I would like to add about the sustainability basically factor. I think I'm going to bundle it with the previous thing what I said. That sustainability is also based on your skill, that how you are, rather than populating the cities, how you're spreading it across. So there is a huge opportunity. There are a lot of vacuum within the industry that people are not discovering. For an example, somebody coming from the Uttarakhand and coming up to the city and for looking for, like, it's basically, we are talking about, like, sometimes we end up finding the talent and we are looking for a fish which can fly better, rather than, exploring the talent within how better they can swim. So sometimes those kind of rat race that we are in cities, and we end up exploring the new avenues rather than chasing the same. So sustainability factor can be created within their own learning, or you can say in a own profession manner, to create a job opportunity within their city or state they are coming from.
Great. So I think with this, we are at the end of today's panel discussion. It's gone beyond the stretch of at least my imagination of how long it's going to take. But I think it's been so engaging, and if any of you get time, you can go onto the YouTube channel and answer some of the questions if you want to exchange one-on-one notes, because still a lot of questions are unanswered. So I would sincerely urge the speakers, if you get a chance, go to the YouTube link and answer those questions in the form of comments.
Karthik, I would suggest you, if you can share the questions over the emails to all of us.
I'll do that.
If we get a chance, so we'll love to answer the queries of the youth.
Absolutely, I'll do that. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Dilip Shenoy ji Secretary General FICCI, under whose guidance this has been organized. Special thanks to Manish Ahuja and Anirban Chatterjee, who have been behind the scenes putting this all together and engaging all of us. And thank you to all the panelists and especially Ashish, who's also our co-chairman of FICCI Travel Technology Committee, for his inputs. And thank you once again for taking out time and sharing.
Thank you so much. Rajiv, I didn't recognize you. I have recognized you now. How are you doing? All good?
Very well, sir. Very well.
Yeah. Be in touch.
Done, sir. Done.
Yeah.
Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
you, everyone.
Bye bye.
Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye,
Pranav.
Ashish.
Bye.
Thank you, Ashish.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Riyaz. Bye.
Bye. Bye.